All right, so today is lesson 8.4, and we're actually starting to factor trinomials. Be prepared to kind of anticipate that there will be a learning curve on this lesson, you guys. You definitely are going to have to practice a lot to get the hang of this thing, but you can do it. Just keep kind of really try and get into the method here as we talk about it. So what we're talking about here is factoring a trinomial, right, when we have three terms. And when we're done, right, factored form here at the end, like this is where we're trying to get. Factored form is going to have two parentheses like this next to each other. All right, so just keep in mind that that's the goal. Let's go ahead and start with the first trinomial. When we're looking at factoring, we pay close attention to our a, b, and c values. So a is the number with x squared, so a is 1. B is the number with x, so in this case a is 11, and c is the number at the end, the constant, and that number in this case is 10. All right, now AC, can we tell that this right here is multiplying, right? A times c, so what's the product of AC? Well, that's going to be 1 times 10, which is just 10. All right, so what we got to do is we have to find two numbers that multiply to give us A times C, which is 10, but add up to give us our B value, which was 11. Okay, so we're looking to see two numbers that multiply to this, but that add up to this. A little trick you can do if you're struggling coming up with a list of numbers that do that is go ahead and just always look at the end number, go to your y equals, and what you can do is you can put that number in there and you can divide it by x. Always just divide by x. So I'm going to do 10 because that's the number on the end and divide it by x. And then I go to my table. Don't go to the graph, it'll confuse you. So go to your table. And every single xy pair in your table is going to multiply to give you 10. Now ignore the numbers with decimals. So look, like -5 times -2. -2 times -5, -1 times -10, 1 times 10, 2 times 5. So we have all these numbers that multiply to 10. Which of these numbers adds to 11? All right, well, this one right here, right? 1 and 10. 1 times 10 is 10, right? We're multiplying here. 1 times 10 is 10, and 1 plus 10 is 11. Now, the reason that we do this is because once we get these two magic numbers that we just figured out, we have to use them to factor by grouping. So pay close attention. This is what we started with. So I'm going to take x squared. I'm going to take the 10, positive 10, but I'm not going to write 11x. Okay, we're going to break up the 11x. Ooh, sorry. My handwriting's terrible today. All right, we're going to break up the 11x, and we're going to use the two magic numbers from over here. All right, so we're going to say plus a 1x and plus a 10x. Right, so these numbers that we used over here on the left, we're using in our grouping. Now this is what we did on our last lesson, right? When you have these four terms to start with, now we can factor by grouping. So the point of all this was to get the 1 and the 10, so we could write it like this with four terms. Okay, now once we have four terms, we practice factoring by grouping, which we already know how to do. We make two groups, and so I'm going to rewrite. I've got x squared plus 1x for one group, and I've got 10x plus 10 for another group. All right, when we factor by grouping, we just look for our GCF in our one little group here. So what's my GCF of this first little group? Well, I got x in both. And then I've got a 1x and a, okay, so I guess 1 is the GCF, so 1x here, or just x. So that's going to go outside my parentheses. And then we have to figure out what's left over, right? That's factoring. You take out what's common, and then you figure out what's left over. So we're going to divide out the x, and we're going to see what's left. All right, well, x squared divided by x leaves us with an x. And then here the x's cancel, right? At 1x divided by 1x is just positive 1. All right, so there's my first little group that I factored out. I'm done with that. Let's look at the next one. 10x plus 10. Okay, my GCF here is, well, I have x here, but no x here, so I can't use x. But I have 10 in both, right? Both of those numbers are divisible by 10. So 10 is going to be my GCF. That's the number that I'm going to pull out and put on the outside. All right, so now we got to figure out, if I take out that 10, what's left over? Well, let's see here. 10 divided by 10 leaves me with just x, and then 10 divided by 10 is just 1. All right, so last but not least, my x's plus 1 are one of my groups because I had those turn out for both. That should happen. Remember, guys, that's like half the point of doing this. My other group is created by the GCFs I took out, the blue terms. So in this case, x and 10. All right, so we got an x and a positive 10. That is my factored form here. So I got x plus 10 and x plus 1. Now we always will want to double check. This is just checking. So x and 1, x and 10 gives me x squared plus 1x plus 10x plus 10. Let's see here. And these combine to give me 11x. And is that what I had originally? Yes, yes it is. All right, so I know that I'm right. So my factored form is officially x with a positive 10 and x with a positive 1. All right, there we go. That's how we factor. Okay, let's go ahead and let's do it again. Let's do it on this time. We got 3x squared plus 2x minus 16. So a in this case is, let's see, a is 3, b is 2, c is negative 16. So a times c, remember we're multiplying here, would be 3 times 16, 3 times negative 16, which is negative 48. All right, and let me just double check my math because as you can see, it's kind of early. All right, 3 times negative 16. All right, negative 48. So we're multiplying to get negative 48, right, a times c, but they still have to add up to just plain old b, the number in the middle, in this case, 2. So what numbers multiply to this, but add up to this? Multiply to negative 48, but add up to 2. Okay, remember we talked about a little trick we could do. We can go to our y equals, and we can do that number, negative 48, and we can divide by x. And let's look at the table. All right, we're looking for a combination that adds up to 2. Positive 2? Yeah, positive 2. Because I'm looking right here, negative 6 plus 8. No, that's it. Look, negative 6 plus 8 is going to be a positive 2, right? All these numbers multiply to 48, right? 1 and 48, 224, 316, negative 412. But the one that adds up to a positive 2 is this one right here, negative 6 and 8. We got lucky. It was just kind of already on the screen there. So we're going to do negative 6 and 8. All right? When I add them, I get positive 2. When I multiply them, I get negative 48. Now, what do you do with these numbers again? Let's talk about that. Well, we keep the 3x squared and we keep the negative 16. And then the numbers in the middle are these highlighted numbers we just figured out, the magic numbers in this case, right? So minus 3x plus 8x. And now we make our groups, right? All that figuring out was so we can write 4 terms instead of 3. Remember, this is reverse distribution. So we're actually trying to make more terms than combining terms. All right, so my first group is 3x squared minus 6x. My next group is 8x minus 16. And now we just get to focus one at a time, which is kind of nice. All right, let's see here. My first group is, I got a 3, right? Both of these can be divided by 3. And they both have an x, so 3x. So I'm taking out the 3x, it's going in the front. Then we got to figure out what's left over. Remember, you can always do this by dividing. Some of you like kind of the fill in the blank method, which is also a decent way to do this. All right, 3's cancel, x squared over x is x. X is cancel here, negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. All right, let's move on to the next group. Remember, totally different group here. We got 8x and 16. My GCF is not going to have x because 16 doesn't have an x. But both of these are divisible by 8, right? That's the biggest number both can be divided by. So I'm going to use 8 for my GCF. That number goes outside, and we have to figure out what is left over. All right, the way that we do that is we divide out the GCF that we just found. So we're dividing out the 8. Okay, let's see. We're left with x minus 2. Do my numbers match? My x minus 2s are matching, right? The numbers in the parentheses are matching, so that's one of my groups. The other group is the other stuff, right? 3x and a positive 8. Okay. Now, I'm pretty sure we're done, but we always can check our answer. By the way, what I'm doing by hand, you can do in your calculator. as well. But I got a place to write it, so I'm just going to do it. We got x, we got a negative 2. So we have 3x squared, 8x, negative 6x, and negative 16. When I write those out, positive 8, negative 6x, minus 16. Oof. These numbers in the middle add up to positive 2. So 3x squared plus 2x minus 16. Is that what I started with? It is, so I am correct. So my factored form is officially 3x with a positive 8 and x minus 2. All right, we're going to go ahead and we're going to try the next one, example number 3. All right, let's go ahead. Let's identify A, B, and C. A is 6, B is negative 5, and C is negative 4. A times C is 6 times negative 4, which is negative 24. And B is negative 5. So what two numbers multiply to this? Multiply to negative 24, but add up to negative 5. Another reminder, if you want to find a list of factors, put in that product, negative 24, and just divide by x. Go to your table. All these numbers multiply to 24. All the xy combinations multiply to negative 24. Which one adds up to negative 5? See, that one adds up to negative 2. This one adds up to positive 2. This one adds up to positive 5. I need a negative 5, so let's keep going. Okay, here, 3 and negative 8, right? 3 and negative 8 multiplies to negative 24, but when I add, I get a negative 5. So 3 and negative 8. Those are the two numbers that are going to make this work for me. These are the numbers that are going to allow me to factor. And so remember that we keep the 6m squared, we keep the negative 4, but instead of writing this 5m, we break it up into our two magic number terms here. So a positive 3x and a negative, I guess I should probably use m, huh? Negative 3m and a negative 8m. All right, so I'm going to make my two groups. Don't forget, if that term is negative, to include it in the parentheses. Here's what I'm talking about. Plus 3m. This group has a negative inside of it. If you don't keep it there, it's not going to work out. All right, so let's go ahead and let's divide out or figure out our GCF. Let's see, 6 and 3 can both be divided by 3, and they both have m, so 3m. All right, divide out the 3m. That goes outside, and we have to figure out what is left inside. Well, 6 divided by 3 is 2, and m squared divided by m is m. And everything cancels here, so what do I write? A 1. Right? If everything cancels out, we got to do a 1, so that when we distribute, we get our 3m back. Okay, on the next group, we got to find my GCF again. Let's see here. Negative. Okay, don't forget, if this term is negative, my GCF has to be negative. All right, my GCF has to be negative. Let's see, 8 and 4 can both be divided by 4. So negative 4 is my GCF. Okay, and that number goes in front of parentheses. And I can figure out what is left over. Negative 8 divided by negative 4 is positive 2, and m is still there. Negative 4 divided by negative 4 is just a positive 1. Perfect, right? These are matching in the parentheses, which is what I wanted. Whoa. Here we go. So let's write that out. We got 2m plus 1 in parentheses. And my other group is a 3m, right? These numbers on the outside. A 3m and a negative 4. Let's test it out. All right, this is what I think the factored form is, but I can check my answer really quickly. This box method is super fast. Got a negative 4, we got a 2m and a 1. 3m times 2m is 6m squared. Negative 4 times 2m is negative 8m. 3m times 1 is 3m, and 1 times negative 4 is negative 4. Now when I write all this out, basically I'm checking to just make sure that I get that middle term correct. Negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5m minus 4. Is that what I started with? Yes, it is, so we're good. All right, so my factored form is, I already checked it, 3m minus 4 and 2m and a positive 1. All right, We have one more example, you guys. Thank you for hanging in there. I know this is a long video. Let's just try it out here. All right, last trinomial here. A is 1, B is -7, and C is 12. So A times C, 1 times 12 is just 12. So I need numbers that multiply to 12, but add up to B, which is -7. All right, 12 and -7. I'm just going to go ahead and do this one. In this case, it's going to be a -3 and a -4, right? Still multiply to a +12. When I add -3 plus -4, I get -7. I just didn't use my calculator this time to save a couple seconds. All right, so in here, instead of writing the -7x, we're going to break it up into these terms over here. These are the numbers that we want. We need a -3 and a -4. By the way, I don't think I said this yet. The numbers that you put in the middle, the order you write them in doesn't matter. So I could have written -4x minus 3x. It's not going to make a difference. All right, let's make my two groups. So I've got x squared minus 3x, and I've got -4x with a +12. All right, let's find my GCF for each of these little groups here. In this group, they both have an x, and that's the only thing they have in common, right? They don't have a common factor other than just x. So x is going to go outside my parentheses. An x cancels here, so I still have an x. These x's cancel, and I get a -3. Okay, in my next group, what's my GCF? Well, they can both be divided by, oh wait, got a negative in the front, so my GCF has to be negative. And they can both be divided by 4, so I'm going to use a -4. So -4 goes in front of the parentheses. All right, here we go. We have those canceling out, so we get a +x, and then 12 divided by -4 is -3. Do they match? They do. Awesome. So that's one of my groups, x minus 3. My group in the front are my GCFs, right? The x and the -4. So I got an x and a -4. All right, we're almost there, you guys. Now all I got to do is check my answer. Check those factored terms. I got an x and a -4. We have an x and a -3. This is going to be x squared minus 4x minus 3x and a +12. So if I write all those out, here we go, +12. These numbers combine and I get x squared with a -7x and a +12. All right, so my factored form, wait, is that right? Does this match this? Okay, it does, so I am correct. And we've got x minus 4 and x minus 3. All right, we're going to be practicing this for a couple of days. Just keep in mind, the hardest part about this is finding these two numbers, figuring out what they have to be. There's only one correct combination, and then do the grouping method, which we learned last lesson.